Yeah. So hello and welcome to the Paratrooper and a Yogi Walk Into a Bar podcast. That's Shana Meyerson, who is a yogi and host of the Yoga of War podcast.
And that is Middle East expert and veteran paratrooper Andrew Fox, who is Mr. Andrew Fox on Substack. So, Mr. Andrew Fox, what's a guy like you doing in a bar like this?
Well, so I'm a former 16-year British Army veteran. I served in Afghanistan, and I'm now a research fellow at a think tank in London. And it's my job to talk and write about the Middle East and everything that's going on there at the moment. And what on earth brings you here?
Well, I mean, after the whole Douglas Murray thing on Joe Rogan, I feel like I really need to establish my credentials here. So I will say I've been involved with Israel and Jewish causes since birth. I think that pretty qualifies me, but I've been super immersed since like the turn of the century. I'd say most prominently, I've been a part of the Jewish Diplomatic Corps, which is like an elite group of amateur diplomats from around the world. You'll know some of them, three of whom I know you know well, which is Natasha Hausdorff, Aviva Klampus, Arsen Ostrovsky. We've got barristers, strategists, analysts, diplomats, and yeah, a yoga instructor. So I'm in my night. I've been in it for a dozen years. You're supposed to be out by 45. I'm in a very like Mahmoud Abbasi way. My ninth year of being 45, they haven't kicked me out yet, probably because of, my youthful exuberance and beauty. Um,
That's
but
what
I'm
yoga
heavily
does for you.
involved.
So, there you go. You're
It
selling
does.
your yoga straight from the word go.
That's right. And of course, I'm heavily involved in APAC. And just to preempt the trolls, I actually pay them. They don't pay me. And I'm on the National Women's Board of Israel Bonds. I blog for Times of Israel. And of course, I'm the host of the Yoga for podcast. So I feel like I have to get more credentials than you because most people are going to be like, a yogi? Like what? So anyway, the format of our show is just going to be that each week we'll be talking about the topic that interests the most of the week. So,
Yes.
Andrew.
And so my topic this week is, of course, the al-Alhi hospital incident in Gaza. It's made some pretty negative headlines around the world, and even today we've seen the BBC telling us that it's yet another of the last functioning hospitals in Gaza. The last functioning hospital in Gaza seems to have been struck multiple times, according to the BBC, over the last 18 months. And it's really just a very misleading headline. And I think there are some important things to note here. First of all, there's 11 field hospitals in Gaza. Now, we all know Hamas has been using the hospital infrastructure in Gaza as a way of doing two things. First of all, giving them illegal cover from what they see as Israeli attacks. And secondly, they've also been using the hospitals to pump energy and supplies into the tunnels that run underneath the entirety of Gaza. Now, it's interesting to note that before the war, Gaza had more hospitals than Paris.
Oh,
Paris,
wow.
of course, vastly bigger in terms of population and size than Gaza, and yet Gaza had more hospitals. And there's certainly this strange aid-based economy that was keeping Gaza functioning during the war, where international actors funneled money into Gaza to try and essentially help them try and build a society, and all of that aid was repurposed by Hamas to create a terror network and to launch attacks on Israel. And so we're down to this controversy about the hospital al-Alhi. Now, al-Alhi is famous from the first part of the war because it was the site of a missile strike that went round the world, blaming Israel for striking the hospital. And of course, in due course, it turned out to be a Palestinian Islamic Jihad rocket fired at Israel that fell short and landed in the hospital car park. But what that shows us is that throughout this war, hospitals have been a really kind of key lever of criticizing Israel. Now, would Israel have attacked any building in Gaza if they hadn't been attacked first? No. Would Israel attack any building at all in Gaza if Hamas weren't present? Clearly not. We have constant allegations of targeting of civilians and targeting of non-military targets. But we have to go back and look at how the Israelis do business. Now, I've sat in Israeli Air Force targeting cells. I've sat in the civilian harm mitigation cell they have down in Beersheba. I've seen how the Israeli army does business, and I went into Gaza twice during the war in the last phase. And the simple fact is this, that Israel does business exactly the same way that the US Army or the British Army would do business. And actually, they go above and beyond what we would do in comparable circumstances.
Bless
You
you.
can edit that bit out.
So when we're in public in a bar, you gotta do this thing.
Yeah, that old COVID thing. I prefer that one.
I saw the bartender jump when you did that.
But yeah, so this particular bombing, we know there was a command structure in there. The photos have been shared by the IDF. You can see it pretty clearly. And it hit one outbuilding, and they evacuated everyone they could after giving a due warning. And those are all the things you have to do under the international law of armed conflict when there's a protected site that has lost its protected status because one combatant or another has used it as a military headquarters. Now, people can say, where's your evidence? Well, actually, you can just do it on open source. Hamas themselves have posted videos on their Telegram channel of them firing RPGs at the Israelis from hospitals. There is so much evidence just on open source. You don't even have to go to the IDF to get evidence for this. But that's really my key issue to talk about, and that is the fact that yet again, Hamas are weaponizing civilian protected infrastructure in Gaza to pursue their war aims, and then once again using it to try and batter Israel in the aftermath of an inevitable attack when they do so.
Yeah, and their behaviors make it a legitimate target of war. The funny thing, not funny, like funny, not funny, about the PIJ bombing that happened on October 17th, like way before the war even started, was that to this day, most people in the world still insist that that was Israel. I mean, so this counterfactual narrative makes all of this just that much less tenuous. And it is funny how, like, Hamas at the same time, it's just like what they did on October 7th. They could stream their atrocities and then go, oh, no, we never did that.
Yeah, it's
And
bizarre, isn't it? And I was working, well, I am working on a disinformation project, and I set my interns the task of just digging up some background stuff on this strike. And the first sort of 10 or 11 Google hits were still Israel strikes hospital. And I
that's
give a
right.
lesson on disinformation. I teach a class, and I've got three New York Times headlines over the space of 12 hours where it goes Israel strikes hospital, hospital explosion, Islamic Jihad rocket falls short. And it's over 12 hours. You can see how the story developed as media, they rush to get the story out ahead of the facts. And and when we can laugh about how ridiculous it is, but it's so disingenuous, and it really subverts societal norms because this reporting is so disingenuous, it's so loaded towards Hamas that the idea that journalists should be pushing the truth and trying to get to the bottom of the issue at hand seems to have fallen by the wayside in favor of getting a headline out before anyone else. And I think that's actually really dangerous because even in a social media age, we still need some kind of editorial, some kind of fact finding where the truth is the goal, because that's the only way we cut through this sea of misinformation and lies that's out there, and that's getting worse as social media gets worse.
Sure. I would contend that you say even in the social media age, I would say especially in the social media age. I mean, I think that this was like the whole reason why Douglas Murray went on for an entire hour on Joe Rogan talking about expertise. It wasn't really, I think that maybe his point was lost. It wasn't about like expert or who's an expert. It was about facts versus fiction. And we're dealing in a world of fiction. And it's true, Andrew, being as immersed in this as I am, like I'll know that whatever, it doesn't matter. Something happened that defends Israel. Let's say the PIJ rocket. And I'll go on Google and I'll type in the fact that I know, and all I could even come up with on Google are counterfactual references. And when even and obviously we've all seen the bias in Wikipedia and the articles about this, but it's like when even our sources of facts are fictional, it's, I more and more every day, I feel like our hashtag for this war should be funny, not funny, because from this vantage point, it's like how much more ridiculous can this get? But at the same time, like there's nothing funny about this.
No,
And
I
it's
agree. I completely agree. And we're now almost in a post-truth world here, aren't we? Where actually facts matter less than someone's opinion. And that's really what Dave Smith was saying the other night. I think it was that, he's just asking questions. And it's like, well, you're asking stupid questions that aren't relevant. This is you're just showing your ignorance by the stupid questions you're asking. And it's a dangerous time. It's a very dangerous time.
and look how many like platforms have had him on since Joe
Mm.
Rogan. So what happens to his lies and propaganda is they get amplified and amplified. Like listening to him was so cringy, but I had to see like what is Douglas Murray going to come up with to counter this. But it's scary. It's scary because it doesn't even matter who wins that argument. 50% of the people are going to walk away saying everything Dave Smith said was right. 50% are going to say everything that Douglas Murray said was right. We're all like painted into our corners. And again, what is a counterfactual corner? We live in a very Orwellian, inverted society right now. And it's scary. And I think that this slippery slope is more than a rabbit hole. I think it's going to go right to the center of the earth where everything implodes.
Well, I think
How
Douglas made a really good point.
optimism.
He made a really good point to Reagan where he said, by platforming these people, you're conferring credibility onto them. Because we live in an age where the number of followers you have is the amount of credibility you've got. And if somebody with millions of followers platforms these lunatics like Ian Carroll or Dave Smith, who talk utter nonsense and they, ahistorical, afactual nonsense, that confers credibility on the nonsense concepts they're talking. And again, it's divorced from fact, it's divorced from reality, and yet here we are, in an age where you get maligned state actors bringing fraudulent court cases in international courts, and it's all connected. It's all connected right from the top downwards. But all we can do is keep telling the truth and hope that people will listen.
Yeah. Thank you, Andrew, for being the purveyor of truth.
So that's my section. What is it that you wanted to talk about today?
So, on the heels of the Trump Netanyahu meeting last Monday, I've been thinking this week about like, what do I want to talk about? I think that everybody's talked the Iran nuclear talks into the ground. I think the Turkish conversation is very important. But actually, today, what I want to talk about is the Riverway Law petition to declassify Hamas as a terrorist organization is in Britain. I'll start off with just like the utter audacity on the like if this were just like a random day in May and whatever. I'm trying to pick a year where there wasn't a conflict. 2017, let's say. I'm like, which one would work? And they're like, oh, maybe now's the time. But directly on the heels of the October 7th massacre, and right in the middle of the heat of the war, for them to think like, oh yeah, no, now is the moment. So again, let's come back to funny, not funny. Like, I don't think they would think that now was not a moment if it weren't for what you said, which is how social media and mass media are in the social narrative are all stacked against Israel. And this was a big part of the plan. October 7th was not about October 7th. It was about normalizing anti-Semitism and finding a pathway to once and for all delegitimize the Jewish state and the Jews. It's just amazing because in the beginning, so there's this weird dynamic that nobody wants to be called an anti-Semite, right? Not even the anti-Semites, like because it's a bad word, right? Like
Oh, they're
nobody wants to be
anti-Zionists
called.
now. It's changed. Don't worry. Did you not get the memo?
Well, but I'm going to make actually a different point, Andrew,
Okay.
because I actually think it's more nefarious than that. If you're really looking at the narrative, at first it was exactly what you're saying. It's not the Jews, it's the Zionists. Then they got a little bolder. Now they're like, oh, it's not just Zionism. It's actually the whole nation of Israel. It's got to go. It's illegitimate. But then now what's trending on X in Kanye Ye has an actual song now called Heil Hitler, that now it's not about Israel anymore. It's actually about annihilation of the Jews. They're not even pretending. And it's funny because the again, funny, not funny, the pretense of this lawsuit by this rando law firm in whatever, some back alley in England, is that their premise is that the Zionist entity is about to collapse, and in a step towards peace, we need someone to come in and replace it. And even if you have some issues with Hamas, we think that they're the most legitimate organization to fill the space of the democratic Jewish state of Israel. And when you listen to their primary barrister, I remember his name, talk, he slides in every, sorry, I don't want to use curse words, every crazy propaganda trope against Israel that is known to man, but they're masters of sliding it in like it's just, oh, la-di-da, I'm just going to put this in a normal conversation because
It's
that
just a
way,
genocide in Gaza, it's accepted, that kind of thing. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's right. He's not even trying to prove the point. He talks just casually right over it, which they all do. So here's the thing, in a rational world, I would say, okay, this is just ridiculous. Anyone could petition anything, right? But I mean, the ICC, the ICJ have already proven international law doesn't matter. I don't know how much confidence I have that the UK is going to do better. And I'll say my piece, but I'm in America and you're in England, so I'm sure that you have a better finger on the pulse. I'll go ahead and concede that I am not an expert on UK, but I do know, having been in this rodeo for a while, that Labor has had a significant anti-Semitism problem for a long time, since Jeremy Corbyn, when there was the big blow up about he I think you could correct me that he sort of established this anti-Semitic flavor, even though he was sort of ousted or whatever the word is, you could explain that. But the vote's still out on Starmer. We know about Lammy. Okay, so Foreign Secretary David Lammy is clearly anti-Israel. And here's the thing, it's what people have to understand is all of these little things set very dangerous precedents. What happens when one country, a legitimate country, says that they're going to recognize a Palestinian state? Well, then they start falling like dominoes, right? Everybody's like, oh, well, we're going to recognize a Palestinian state. Never mind. It has no borders. It has no government. We don't know what the state is, but whatever. So it's a subversive way of creating a de facto state by bypassing the Oslo Accords that said that we needed actual mutual recognition, peace, and security in order for them to get statehood. But the whole world right now, not the whole world, most of the world, including people who should know better, are using the word Palestine as if it's a state. And this is how vocabulary becomes insidious. And I fear that if they succeed in getting this off the UK terrorist list, they are going to be normalized across the globe. So I'd love to hear your take, particularly on the British part.
Well, the argument that I've seen is that they're saying that it infringes Hamas supporters' human rights and freedom of speech if
Aw.
they're prescribed, which is a fun twist. But look, I think it goes slightly more insidious than even you were suggesting, because yes, eradication of Israel is clearly a goal, but I think also subversion of Western norms is very high on their agenda too. I mean, they've subverted international law through the ICC and the ICJ, and now they're trying to weaponize the laws that were created to protect our rights and our freedoms to essentially enable organizations that are explicit about their desire to destroy them. And they'll say that, oh, Hamas don't pose a risk to anyone in Britain. And I suspect the Jewish community might feel rather differently about that. Um, they were very explicit in their early charter that destroying the Jews was an objective, and within the last 18 months, they've tried to carry that out. So it's a nonsensical case. I very much doubt it has much chance of succeeding, but it shows you how successful the international campaign has been over the last 18 months for Hamas and their supporters, that they even feel emboldened enough to try this sort of thing. It would be, and it's got them the headlines they wanted, it's got them the attention they wanted. It will have certainly mobilized a section of society to go, hey, yeah, we should decriminalize Hamas, we should deprescribe them. And that's really the aim of it. I don't think the aim of it is to actually get them deprescribed. I think the aim is to generate yet more sentiment in support of Hamas from their fellow travelers and the people who've been leaning that way for the last, well, since October the 7th.
There's no doubt because listen, they play an end game that is so long, right? Like
Mm.
we tend to think like a 5 or 10 year plan is a long plan. Their plan is literally, I'm not exaggerating, it's centuries old. They have it from beginning to end. And this was always, I mean, you look at how they say that Students for Justice in Palestine knew about the October 7th attacks 3 minutes before they happened. And so it would be hard to say that this campus intifada movement and the legitimization of resistance and social justice warriors was not a coordinated part of this. I think it was a calculated risk. I don't know that I personally would think, well, maybe if I go and behead a baby, like the world will love me more. But sadly enough, that's what happened. Funny, not funny. Hashtag. That's my sign for hashtag. Anyway, I know that we were committed to keeping this short. Do you have anything else to add before we sign off?
No, just that people should, if you like this and you want to see more of it, then please like and subscribe and follow us. And we're going to do this weekly. Whenever there's a hot topic in the news, we'll try and talk about it and give you our opinions. But if you made it this far into the video, thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe. What he said. Have a great day.
Take care.